Irish Media Network. We entertain.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to Irish Media Network Sports Update. I'm your host, Joe Caulfield, and on tonight's show, we're going to be talking all things horse racing. So, as many of you may know, the Irish government have allowed Irish horse racing to be the first sport to recommence on the 8th of June. Now, Horse Racing Ireland this week published a very extensive document on the protocol which will effectively use to implement monitoring and regulation around all race meetings going forward in the weeks and months to come. I am very, very happy to be joined this week by my guest, up-and-coming and leading trainer of Fresnel, Black Magic Woman, and many others down in Killarkin Stud this week. I am joined by Jack W. Davison. Jack, thanks so much for coming on the line and chatting to me.
Not at all. Thanks for having me.
So tell us, how are things down in County Meath?
Yeah, everything is good, Joe. We were very glad of the good news a couple of weeks ago that we could get back racing on June the 8th. It was a very anxious time for all of us in the horsey game, if you like. I know there's a bigger world outside of horse racing, but at the same time, it's our livelihood. So it was good that we could get the date back to June 8th as opposed to June 29th. So we're all looking forward to getting back racing. We just want to get back to work.
That's good to hear. And can I ask you, over the last kind of 8 weeks since lockdown was imposed, how have you managed? So is it have you had to scale back, or has it been business as usual for you?
Yeah, well, that's been the real challenge, Joe. Because with dealing with race horses, they're, we kind of we treat them like they're professional athletes. So we train these animals to peak at a certain time of year, and with that we need to increase intensity and then back off them a little bit. So without a target race, it's very difficult. It's a little bit aimless, and you go through your routine maintenance training, which is fine. You keep the horse relatively fit and healthy, and the animal needs to be cared for anyway. But
of course,
without racing, the whole thing is just a little bit aimless, and the staff, even the staff get a little bit bored, if you like, and we're just doing the routine work and without anything to look forward to. It's all about racing and the preparation leading up to that. That's when the intensity and the excitement builds.
Yeah, of course. And actually, it's funny that you mentioned that, because the first show we had 2 county footballers on, and we were talking about how difficult it is for them to maintain their motivation and their drive without a first championship match of the season to kind of work towards and count back from. When you're dealing with animals, is there any sort of psychological element for them to kind of maintain them over the course of the year, or how does that work?
Yeah, well, that's the kind of that's the constant challenge that we have as trainers, is just trying to figure out each animal mentally as well as physically and what suits them.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Like some horses, like they're all different, is the first thing I'll say. Some horses need racing to keep them focused. Some horses need more work between racing to keep them fit. Some animals are bigger, they're fatter, if you like, so they need more work. Other animals need less. So without a racing program, that all goes out the window, So they're all different. They all need to be trained differently. So without a target, then the whole thing is just a little bit aimless.
Yeah. And can I ask you then, in terms of staff, so you have, am I right in saying you've 20 horses in the stables at the moment?
Yeah, so it sort of fluctuates between 20 and 25, but 20 as we sit here speaking, yeah.
Okay, and then how many staff have you employed to look after them, to train them on a kind of on an ongoing full-time basis?
5 staff, Joe. Ideal ratio is kind of 1 staff member to every 3 or 4 horses.
Okay.
So 5 staff excluding me. So I just kind of hover around and tie up the loose ends. But yeah, five staff looking after the 20 horses, which means 4 of the staff ride out. So 4 riders will ride 5 horses a morning, if you like. So that's
okay. And do they live on site?
No, just one of them does. But the other girls live two of the girls live quite close by, and then my other lad is Monster Evan Kildare, so he's a little bit further to travel.
Okay, and are they deemed essential workers? So there's been no, like, they're able to go to work on a continual basis. There's been no kind of lapse there.
Yeah, we've been lucky in that regard because our industry falls under the category of of animal care.
Animal care, I would have thought that.
Yeah, so we had an exemption in the first place, if you like, from the initial lockdown period. So we were lucky that we were allowed to go to work because we had to look after the horses. So that just meant me providing letters to my staff that would permit them to travel to and from work on a daily basis.
Okay, great stuff. So I'd like to talk a little bit about your own career and how you got into training, because you're from a long line of breeders, from your grandfather, Walton Davison, to your parents. You diverged then slightly from breeding into training. What inspired that decision in the first instance?
I'd like to consider myself as a sportsman. I love sport. I'm a competitor. So, I mean, the breeding was what I kind of grew up in, but the competitor and sports person inside me I wanted to compete by way of horses. So that's kind of why I diverged and went into racing, more so than breeding.
Okay, and you started off, you did equine science in UCD, and then you were accepted into the Godolphin Flying Star program. Tell me a little bit about that and what was involved in it.
Yeah, so the Godolphin Flying Star program is essentially like a master's degree in the thoroughbred industry. It's well regarded program. It's a 2-year program whereby you go around the world and you experience different industries under the global bloodstock banner, if you like.
Okay.
So you go around the world, you learn from the best, you meet the best, you get experience. Basically, it opens up a lot of doors that you wouldn't in a relatively short period of time. That you mightn't get these kind of opportunities, and without it. So it's a fantastic program. It's all funded by Sheikh Mohammed, the ruler of Dubai. So I'd recommend it. But it is what you make of it as well, though. It's not just a rite of passage to go on and do great things or get a great job. You have to work hard at it.
No, of course. And I suppose that kind of springboards me into my next question. You then went on to work for Jim Bolger, which is possibly a rite of passage in certain ways, but certainly not granted to everyone. How was that experience?
It was a great experience. It was tough, but it was great. It was a tough year. It was tough at the time, but it was character building. It made me. I'm fairly sure that it set the foundation, for me to go on and do what I'm doing now. So after the Godolphin Flying Start, it was, in a way, it was a very different, environment and dynamic. But it was a real world taste of the industry, and I felt like I needed that grounding after being traveling around the world and in these fancy places. I decided I'd go back down to the hill in Kilkenny and get back to basics and roll the sleeves up and take it from there.
And I suppose from the fire pan into the fire, because you went then to Guy Waterhouse in Australia, which again was a very rigorous, tough, laborious job. What did that entail? What was your role there?
Yeah, that was tougher than Jim's now, to be honest, because I went in there as an exercise rider. So all of a sudden, I think when I flew over, I weighed about I'd say just under 11 stone, but within 6 weeks I was 9.5 stone. Between just with the schedule, it's so hot, and
Wow.
it was a lot of weight loss, but that was just the routine I was in. I was riding 7 or 8 horses every morning, and then we used to take them to the beach, and it was all go. So that was pretty intense, yeah. But good experience again, yeah.
And then you came back to Ireland, you worked with Brendan Holland, and I read in an interview with you that you said of all the people and all the places you worked, you probably learned the most in Grove Stud with him. What did you glean from him particularly, or that setup that really set you on your way, or that has really set you in good stead?
Firstly, it was it was Brendan's kind of a self-made guy, so with that, he was a serious guy, and he'd done it. He created what he had, off the back of his own hard work and expertise. So, not saying that there wasn't an automatic respect in Gay Waterhouses or Mr. Bulgers. Of course there was, but when you're working in a smaller operation like that, alongside Brendan, and just having that interaction with him, I just think you begin to appreciate how he got there and what he'd built, and the detail that he went into, because there wasn't so many layers of staff as there would have been in the previous places I worked.
So it was his hands-on approach, doing everything himself.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, like from the feeding to being very specific about the exercise the horses did, and the preparation that goes into a breeze up sale, and getting a horse from a yearling to a young 2-year-old horse, and making it as smooth as possible. It was very, it's a very intense time for them, and to be involved with that for 6 months was a really good learning experience. Yeah, and I was at an age where I'd been around, I'd seen quite a bit, but I just kind of I needed a place to really, really see, really just sort of immerse myself in it, and work for a guy who was really good at what he did in Ireland. And I must mention that in Ireland we've got some of the best horse people in the world. So I think that, down there in Cork and Fermoy, it was. I just thought there was going to be a lot in it, for the stint that I did. So I made the most of it, and I got plenty out of it.
And was it at that point that you made the decision, I want to be a trainer, going through that process, or was it later when you went home?
To be honest with you, I felt like I'd gone so far, like after the Flying Start and working for Mr. Bulger and Gay and various other trainers around the world, and working hard for them. I had, I had my mind made up that I kind of owed it to myself, having worked so hard for other people, to just have a crack myself. So
yeah,
I knew even before then that I was going to train, and it was just a matter of getting another few months under my belt to try and hone my skills and not be too much of a rookie in my first year of training.
Well, like you've really gone from strength to strength. There's a couple of things that I have in the back of my mind that I think might be highlights, but for you personally, over the last kind of 3-year period, what really stands out as some of the sweet moments for you?
Well, there was nothing like my first winner, Joe. Black Magic Woman. She's debatably still my stable star. She was my first winner, and that was just huge relief. I didn't make a mess of it firstly, but just the feeling of it, the feel like, I don't know, you might know yourself as a competitor or any sports person who's watching this, just the feeling of winning, after putting so much into it, for getting experience was just so rewarding. So that's when that was a real highlight. And I was young, like I'm relatively young in trainers' terms. So just to get that confidence and belief that I could do it was magic. Yeah.
Yeah, relief is an interesting one, because once you have your first, then you've proven to yourself that you can do it, and particularly if it comes early-ish, gives you a lot of confidence, I'd imagine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like that was very important for me, because I was in my first year as a full trainer, so I was doing it professionally. And Ireland is a very the horse training race horses in Ireland is very competitive, and with that it's quite cutthroat. So I knew that I need to have made some impact in a relatively the early stages of my career. So that was big for me in the context of my business and where I wanted to take it. So I've experienced, thank God, some good growth since then with more horses and more owners, etc. But that wouldn't have happened without the early couple of winners. Yeah, so that was brutal.
And I saw that. Sorry, I was watching an interview you did around this time last year with Off the Ball, and you were saying how that you were learning all the time from your peers and also jockeys in the yard. How intimate is the relationship between trainer and jockey at your stage?
Yeah, it's big. It's big. It is big for a young trainer starting out. To I suppose borrow the experience of the senior jockeys who've ridden hundreds of winners and listen to them. And listening is so important. And trying to understand what they're saying and then discuss the horse. Just really analyze everything to the core. And I do even now. Like I obsess over this, and I'll be texting various people at various times of the day, asking what they thought of this horse and how did it feel when they worked them, because trying to put the whole jigsaw together and then get it to a stage where you can bring the horse to a race and get it to win. There's so much that goes into that, and getting that. I'm basically trying to get 10 years experience, or get a lot of experience in a short space of time. So it's information overload. But chatting to jockeys about different horses is key. But ultimately, I'm the one that has to make the decision. So that all the more information, the better. But it comes to a point where you have to make a decision also.
Yeah, of course. And then I suppose kind of talking about the big news is obviously that racing is back on the 8th of June. Horse Racing Ireland have published now this really extensive 77-page document on protocol for monitoring and regulating race meetings going forward. Look, it covers loads and loads. I think it's great, apart from anything else, that they've been so forensic in bringing out this protocol. What's your take on it, first of all, the protocol that they've published and they intend to implement?
Yeah, I mean, it's not undoable by any means. There's a few procedures there that are quite easy to do. I mean, we've got health checks. We've got to lodge paperwork before we go racing. We've got to get temperature screened as we enter the race course to make sure that our temperature is normal, so that we are proven to be healthy. And then there's other things like the usual hygiene stuff, like washing hands and social distancing, and one stable per horse, and every stable has to be disinfected before and after the horse has occupied it. So it's going to take a little bit of an extra effort, and maybe transport could be a difficulty for trainers, getting grooms or staff to the races, especially those trainers that are racing a large amount of horses. That could prove a challenge. But listen, we're so delighted to be back racing that we'll do anything. You'll see high compliance with the horse people, because it'll have been 11 weeks since we raced, Joe, and that's a very long time in our lives,
Yeah. And there's another kind of secondary element to it. I read somewhere that 30,000 people in Ireland depend in some way, shape, or form, either directly or indirectly on the horse racing industry. So from farmers to farriers to breeders to jockeys and trainers like yourself to the media, how imperative is it that they get it right now to ensure that meetings can go on and there isn't another pause period to ensure the future of the sport?
Yeah, well, it's absolutely vital, because like an 11-week stop of racing has really pushed us, really squeezed, owners, trainers, jockeys as well. Those guys got to keep their weight in check. So I think that we during the 11 weeks we had a lot of time to think about the consequences of not racing, and we were dealing with it then. to a point where our worst nightmare now is a situation where we can't race. So it's very important that we all show a high level of compliance when we're going racing. And we did prove that we could race behind closed doors for 10 days prior to the lockdown. So, and I was in Dundalk at that time as well, and it was amazing how disciplined everyone was when it came to respect obeying the rules. So we're a good community like that. We understand the importance that this industry has to our livelihoods, and as you said, to the component industries, farriers, feed guys, and all the rest of it. So we will be doing our best to make sure that this has to go right.
Well, I think even the HRI going to such pains to lay out such an extensive protocol is indicative of the fact that they take it so seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. 77 pages took a bit of doing.
I could imagine that. Good evening read for you. Can I ask when will you be back racing?
First day, Joe. Okay. Yeah, I was on the Curragh this morning working a lot of horses, and it was beautiful out there. Sun was shining, and great atmosphere around the place because racing will be back in nearly 10 days. So I'll be there. I'll be in Naas, couple of runners, 2 or 3, and nearly every day thereafter.
I believe it would be remiss of me for the audience, if nothing else, to ask if you had any tips for us going in on the 8th of June.
You could have for the gamblers amongst you could have €2 each way on a filly that I train called Shorter Skirt.
Shorter Skirt.
Stick
mortgage on it.
Just €2 each way, Joe.
Okay. Jack, thanks so much for coming on the show and talking to us. Good luck on the 8th of June and for the rest of the year. And please God, look at it. It'll kickstart well. You'll adhere to the protocol, and it'll go from there in a positive fashion.
Thanks a lot, Joe. Appreciate it.
Thanks a million, Jack. Take it easy. And that's it for us again this week, folk. Thanks a million to Jack for coming on and having the chat with us there. Thanks again to yourself, as always, for tuning in and watching us. Tune in again next week for more from Irish Media Network Sports Update. And for myself, Joe Caulfield, be good.
Irish Media Network. We entertain.